U.S., a frenzy of development to support the artificial intelligence boom prompts pushback from communities who say they don't want data centers in their backyards. In Michigan, residents today gathered outside the state capitol to protest a string of recent data center proposals. Residents and politicians have also pushed back against projects in Arizona, Missouri, Indiana, and more. So let's bring in Jacob Ward, a technology journalist and host of the Rip Current podcast and author of The Loop, How Technology is Creating a World Without Choices and How to Fight Back. Jacob, always so good to see you.
Great to be here.
All right, how quickly are these data centers popping up across the United States, and with so much investment going into artificial intelligence? Is that only going to ramp up?
It absolutely is. I mean, right, if you think about it, right, even a few years ago, you and I tossing the words data centers around, we wouldn't know what we were talking about, right? As of last year, the data center industry accounted for about 4.5% of the total electricity use in the United States, according to the Department of Energy.
Wow.
In a few years, by 2028, that number is supposed to jump to as much as 12%, right? So we're seeing it double each year, perhaps get bigger than that. And of course, the issue isn't just the incredible, Costco-sized footprint of these places. It is, of course, the effect that they have on the broader community here.
Absolutely. And in today's rally in Michigan, environmental advocates outlined some of their concerns about the data center proposals in that state. One demonstrator warned of impacts to the town's energy and water resources. Take a listen.
We are concerned for our public health. We are concerned for the health of our local environment, our natural resources, sustainable energy future. We are concerned that there are individuals in our community that will not have the ability to keep their lights on or to have access to clean and affordable water.
So how do these data centers really impact the communities where they're built? I mean, presumably they could create jobs, but they also take up a lot of space and use a lot of power. So what does that mean for the folks that are living next door to these things?
Yeah, well, think about it this way, right? Imagine a factory, a steel mill that employs only a tiny handful of people, right? These are basically big zombie buildings. There's nothing going on inside except for the computing. Yeah. And they're always on. The staff never goes home, right? The work never ends. And electricity in this country, as it is everywhere, is built to meet peak demand. And when you have an always on, the equivalent of like a steel mill or some huge factory, always suddenly on, that raises not just the prices of electricity for everybody around, but it sucks up huge amounts of water. Your data centers are pulling something like 5 million gallons a day, right? So we're talking about, that's like, a town of like 100,000 people. And this is water that is in many cases being evaporated to cool these data centers. So you're not going to get anything back. It's not running through and being collected again. It is gone to evaporation. And so it is driving up the cost of electricity for all of these folks. In some cases, by hundreds of dollars a month. And then in other cases, it is also, just actually taking away the physical supply of water as these data centers tap into the municipal supply.
That's really interesting talking about water, because initially when you said that, I thought, that must be used to help power the data centers. No, that's just to
keep them from catching on fire.
There you go.
That's right.
And that's a huge job.
That's right.
The House today voted to advance what's known as the SPEED Act, which is legislation to speed up the permitting process for AI infrastructure projects like these data centers. Yeah. What are the arguments for and against this bill?
Well, certainly the idea behind this bill is they want to speed up the approval process. Right now, if you're going to put in a data center, you have to look at not just the effects of that one building, but how it will drive up the other kinds of, grid construction you'll have to do to create enough energy for this thing to go. And what will the environmental effects be of the, new power plant you'll have to bring online to serve the thing? Yeah. Well, this act would reduce what you're allowed to look at in whether or not you're going to approve this thing to really just talk about the building itself. You're not allowed to look at these other wider effects. So that would move things along. Of course, the industry is very into that because they would like the infrastructure to happen. But it's interesting that at the same time that we're talking about this, also today, 3 Democratic senators opened an investigation into how electricity costs are going up for all these folks in places like where we saw these protests.
Sure.
And so I think very much on in Washington, there's about to be an incredible amount of political wrangling over this issue. Do we take the side of the industry that wants things to move faster, maybe even bring nuclear power back online in this country? Or do we want to actually look at the total effect of this stuff, which research is beginning to show us is much bigger than we ever expected.
But clearly, the administration is going to favor the bigger companies because
That's
they
the
want to
vibe.
see us win the AI race.
That is right. I mean, in the
that
president's recent executive order, he talked about, wanting supremacy, dominance, and, our adversaries around the world. Good to remember that voters don't care about this at all. 80% of voters, according to a Gallup poll, would like AI to be regulated, and they don't care if we fall behind.
Jacob Moore, so good to see you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks so much for coming on.
There is a law of physics that no amount of money, no amount of hype, and no amount of Silicon Valley genius can overcome. It is the second law of thermodynamics. For the last 3 years, we have been living in a digital fantasy. We have been told that artificial intelligence is going to change everything. It is going to cure cancer. It is going to write our code. It is going to drive our cars. It is going to create trillions of dollars of economic value out of thin air. But there is a dirty secret hiding in the basement of the AI revolution. A secret so big and so terrifying that the CEOs of Microsoft, Google, and Amazon are quietly panicking behind closed doors. That secret is simple. Intelligence requires energy. Not just a little bit of energy. We are talking about a voracious, planetary-scale hunger for electricity that humanity has never seen before. Imagine a single AI data center, just one hyperscale facility. In the year 2026, that single building will consume as much power as 500,000 American homes. Now, multiply that by the thousands of data centers being built right now in Virginia, in Texas, in Ireland, and in Singapore. We are trying to build a digital god, but we are plugging it into an electrical grid that was built for toaster ovens and light bulbs in the 1950s. The grid is breaking. The transformers are blowing up. The transmission lines are congested. The wind does not blow hard enough. The sun does not shine long enough. And the batteries are not big enough to store the grid. We have hit the energy wall. And when you hit a wall, you have two choices. You can stop the progress of civilization, or you can smash through the wall with something stronger. On September 20th, 2024, the tectonic plates of the global economy shifted. Microsoft announced it was paying $16 billion to resurrect 3 Mile Island, the site of the worst nuclear accident in American history. They did not do this because they wanted to. They did it because they had to. They calculated the math, and they realized that the only thing dense enough, reliable enough, and scalable enough to power the future is the atom. We are witnessing the death of the green fantasy and the birth of the nuclear renaissance. This is not a political debate about climate change. This is a financial inevitability driven by the survival instinct of the largest companies on Earth. The smartest investors in the world, Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, Sam Altman, Peter Thiel, are all moving their chips to the same square on the roulette table. They are betting on the split atom. Today, on Finance Prism, we are going deep. We are going to deconstruct the technology of small modular reactors that fits in a gymnasium but powers a city. We will expose the severe geopolitical supply crunch in uranium that could send prices vertical. We will explain why the enrichment bottleneck is the most critical choke point in the global economy. And finally, we will hand you the roadmap to position your portfolio for the $10 trillion energy reset. The lights are flickering, the AI is hungry, and the only food left on the menu is yellow cake. Welcome to the Atomic Age 2.0. To understand the solution, you must first respect the terrifying magnitude of the problem. Most people do not understand what AI actually is, physically. They think it is a cloud, a fluffy, invisible thing that floats in the sky. It is not. The cloud is actually millions of tons of copper, steel, concrete, and silicon sitting in massive, windowless warehouses, turning electricity into heat. Let's look at the math of a search query. When you type a question into Google, it uses about 0.3 watt-hours of electricity. It is tiny. It is negligible. But when you ask ChatGPT a question, it uses nearly 3 watt-hours. That is 10 times more energy. Why? Because it is not just looking up an answer in a database like a librarian. It is thinking. It is inference. It is running billions of calculations through a neural network to generate a new answer, word by word, token by token.
Things were already so difficult for my mom when she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. Then she developed
Generate a new answer, word by word, token by token. Now, think about the future. We are not just going to have text chatbots. We are going to have AI agents that run in the background 24/7. Agents that book our flights, edit our videos, trade our stocks, and run our businesses. We are going to have AI generating movies in real time. The computational intensity is going to explode by a factor of 1,000. According to the International Energy Agency, by 2026, data centers alone will consume more electricity than the entire country of Japan. And here's the bottleneck that nobody discusses: the grid itself. The United States electrical grid is a relic. Most of the high-voltage transformers and transmission lines were built 50 years ago. They are nearing the end of their useful life. They are fragile. In Northern Virginia, which is known as Data Center Alley, the place where 70% of the world's internet traffic flows, the local utility company, Dominion Energy, has practically put up a sold-out sign. They have told developers that they cannot guarantee power for new large-scale data centers until the year 2030. Think about the implications of that date, 2030. In the tech world, 5 years is an eternity. It is the difference between life and death. Microsoft cannot wait 5 years. Google cannot wait 5 years. They are in a $1 trillion arms race for dominance. If they cannot get power, they lose the war. So, big tech realized they cannot rely on the public utility companies. They realized the public grid is too slow, too regulated, and too unreliable. They looked at their options for generating their own power. Option A, solar and wind. They tried this. Amazon is the biggest buyer of renewable energy in the world. But solar has a fatal flaw for AI. It is intermittent. A data center running a training model that costs $100 million cannot lose power for even a millisecond. If a cloud passes over the solar farm, the voltage drops, the servers crash. The training run is ruined. You need backup. And backing up a gigawatt-scale data center with lithium-ion batteries costs billions of dollars and requires mining half the planet. It is simply not economically viable. Option B, natural gas. This works. It is reliable. But big tech has made massive net zero climate pledges. Their shareholders, their employees, and the regulators will crucify them if they start building massive new gas pipelines. They need a carbon-free solution. That leaves option C, the nuclear option. Nuclear power is the only energy source that checks every single box. Is it carbon-free? Yes. Is it reliable? Yes. It runs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for 18 months at a time, without refueling. It has a capacity factor of 92% compared to 25% for solar. Is it scalable? Yes. This is why the tech giants are in a panic buying spree. They realized they built the Ferrari, AI, but they forgot to buy the gasoline. And now, they are scrambling to buy the gas stations. The Microsoft deal to restart 3 Mile Island is just the first domino. Amazon bought a data center campus directly connected to the Susquehanna nuclear plant from Talon Energy. Google signed a deal with Kairos Power to build 7 small nuclear reactors. This is a stampede. And when the biggest companies in the world all stampede toward a finite resource, the price of that resource only goes one way: up. Now, you might be picturing the nuclear plants of the past. Massive concrete cathedrals, cooling towers spewing steam, construction projects that take 10 years, go billions over budget, and face endless protests. That is nuclear 1.0. That era is largely over. The technology that has investors like Sam Altman and Bill Gates excited is nuclear 2.0. It is called the SMR, or SMR. Let me explain this with a manufacturing analogy that changes everything. Nuclear 1.0 was like building the pyramids of Giza. Every project was unique. It was built on site, in the mud and rain. It required thousands of specialized workers. If the design had a flaw, you didn't know until you built it. It was bespoke, artisanal engineering. That is why it went over budget. It was a construction project. SMRs are like building a Boeing 747 or a Ford F-150. They are built in a factory, on an assembly line, by robots. Every part is standardized. Every weld is inspected by lasers. When the reactor is finished, it is put on the back of a truck or a train or a barge and shipped to the customer. You dig a hole, you drop it in, you plug it in. If you need more power, you don't build a new plant. You just order another module and plug it in next to the first one, like adding batteries to a flashlight. This changes the economics completely. It removes the risk of construction delays. It lowers the upfront capital cost. It turns nuclear power into a product rather than a project. But the real revolution is in safety. And this is the part that changes the public perception. Old reactors relied on active safety. reactors relied on active safety. If the power went out, you needed electric pumps to push water over the core to keep it cool. At Fukushima, the tsunami destroyed the backup generators. The pumps stopped. The core melted. It was a failure of the pumps, not the physics. New SMRs use passive safety. They rely on gravity and convection, natural laws that never fail. The designs are often submerged in a pool of water or use liquid metal coolants like sodium. If the power goes out, the reactor automatically shuts itself down. The heat rises, disperses, and the core cools itself naturally without any human intervention and without any electricity. The operators can literally walk away and go to lunch, and the physics will keep the plant safe. It is walk away safe. This safety profile changes the real estate game. Old nuclear plants had to be built in the middle of nowhere, with a 10-mile evacuation zone. SMRs can be placed right next to the data center. They can be placed on the site of an old coal plant using the existing transmission lines. They can be placed next to a factory in the middle of a city. This brings us to the companies leading the charge. First, there is TerraPower, founded